Live. Welcome back to Create Community Studios Create-a-thon. We are getting ready for our Bob Ross theme paint along. Maybe you saw the amazing article by Indiana Nash in the Daily Gazette, and they put a lovely little photo of Bob Ross. Just a reminder that we are doing this Create-a-thon as a fundraiser, because the more funds Create gets, the better we can serve our communities. And I've said this before because I'm a longtime volunteer and just friend of the Create Community Studios, that they really have this awesome relationship with the partners they have and the communities that they serve. It's more of a give and take. They take information and recommendations from the community, and then they also produce the classes that you might like. So please consider donating online to createcommunitystudios.org, or you can mail us a check. I'll put all this information in the Facebook Live comments. And so without further ado, I'm going to introduce Heather, which is our Bob Ross for today.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Macaulay. I'd like to welcome you to a very special edition of the Joy of Paintings in honor of Create-a-thon. Son of a gun, I cannot believe all the great stuff that Create Community Studios does for the community, and I'd like to thank you for having me. This is my best Bob Ross impression. Sorry, folks, it's pretty bad. So we want to make sure we've got all our materials out. Looks like our little cohort there, you guys are ready to go. That's awesome. We're going to review our colors first off. So you may, if you have your kit, you may have your containers in little, or your paint in little containers. You might want to get a little bit of each color on your palette there. Bob would have a big palette here, but I'm using this because you use what you've got, as Bob would say. Okay, so everyone kind of had their paints out. Our first step we're going to do is, because we're going to be painting using some of Bob's favorite phrases. And I have a whole list of them over here, and I'm just going to kind of pick them at random, and then we're going to make a painting. And your painting may look a little different than mine, and that's okay, right? As Bob would say, you're just going to go with it, right? So our first, I'm just picking these things out of a hat here. Our first thing that I just picked is we're going to paint a big tree. However, we can't paint a big tree until we've got some background on here, and I've got my standard canvas that is already pre-prepped, okay? So first off, though, we're going to paint some background color. So you're going to take your little 1-inch brush here, your old 1-inch brush, big fat brush there, and we're going to do some blue sky and some greenish, brownish ground there. So first off, you're going to just take your paint, just a little blue there, to have a little bit of white in there. You don't want to mix it all together in the blue. Just get a little in there. All right, and then we're going to start up here with our sky with our 1-inch brush here, our big old 1-inch brush, and we're just going to paint straight across. Everyone see my painting okay? And you're going to make nice, smooth strokes right across the canvas. Now, as we're doing this, we might want to add a few little happy clouds, which we'll kind of do as we're doing our sky. I'm mixing a little more white in there. See how I keep adding a little more white? And the reason you use the big old 1-inch brush here is to get a nice smooth coat of blue on there. And now I got a lot of big streak of blue there, but that's okay. That's just a happy little accident and we're gonna go with it. And we're gonna add a little more white in there and just blend it all together. Okay. You're gonna keep blending. I know a little more white in there. You got some titanium white there. Everyone seeing what I'm doing okay? All right, so once I have a nice coating of blue on there, while my sky is a little wet here, now we're using acrylics today. Bob uses oils, but we're using acrylics. They're a little more forgiving, easy to work with. You don't have to thin your paint down with paint thinner. You just use water. So while my sky here is still pretty wet, we're gonna get a good amount of white on our big 1-inch brush there. And we're gonna add some happy little clouds, just with little circles. And they might blend in a little bit with your sky, but that's okay. That's okay. Because clouds aren't really solid white, they've got some shadow to them. So they might look a little bit like blending into the sky, and that's okay. We're gonna keep going with that. And we're gonna add some more blue down below. We want our sky to maybe go down about 2/3 of the page here. I'm running out of white. So I'm gonna get a little more white on my palette. Whoa. Okay. Keep going with that sky. You want the sky to go down about 2/3 on your canvas. The other thing you can do, have a little water on your brush. Got some water here in my Superman cup. And you can use that to kind of blend some of your streaks. I kind of like the streaks. I think it looks a little bit like the clouds are naturally. Sometimes they're little puffy clouds, happy little puffy clouds. Sometimes they're little streaky clouds. All right, so I think that's a good place to start our ground, because we can't have a big tree without ground for it to grow from. So I'm going to take my burnt umber. This is my burnt umber here, and this is my jet black. And I'm going to take a tiny little bit of the jet black and mix it into a tiny bit of the burnt umber. Okay, just to darken it a little more. And I'm going to add a little green in there, because we're going to kind of make like a muddy green round color. Okay, everyone with me? Everyone with me? Thumbs up. Wow, those are some happy clouds. All right.
Keep in mind, everyone, if you have questions, you can put it in the chat and we can
or feel free to unmute yourself if you've got questions. Oh, we've got some great painters in this crowd here.
What did you add to the burnt umber and black?
added some of the green. My green's a little bit of a different shade than what was in the kits. You have more of a sap green, as Bob would say. And I have a phthalo green, but just to kind of make like a greenish brownish color. Because you're going to do the same thing on the ground as you did with the sky. You're going to kind of have like a bunch of different streaks. Because if we're painting, like, I'm going to go with a spring landscape here rather than a snowy landscape. Kind of keep us feeling all happy, hopeful for spring. So I'm actually kind of just taking a little bit of green and a little bit of brown and black, like at random, and kind of streaking them in while the paint's wet. And if you get a little too much dark in there, you can just add a little bit more of your green. Oh, and that's very bright. That was the happy little accident there. So I will just add a little more brown on top of it, make it look a little more like the grass. We might add a little yellow in there later, a little tad yellow. Because in the spring, the grass, that new baby grass grows, and it's like bright green. But we're gonna add that in a little later. We're working on our ground for a big tree. So see how I'm kind of just going back and forth a lot. The easiest way to blend the paint is when the paint is wet. And that's why you want to just kind of keep going back over it. And don't forget, you can always dip your brush in the water to kind of help blend. All right. Son of a gun, I think we've almost got down to the bottom of our painting. Almost got all our white covered up there. And I'm really gonna need to rinse that brush out really well because it's got lots of black and brown on it. And I'm gonna go back in to finish up our happy little clouds.
Is everybody getting to this stage okay? Anybody want to show them quick? Give us a little peep of your painting.
How are we doing?
Looks like everyone's hard at work.
Everyone is painting away. All right. So I'm gonna rinse my brush really well now, okay? As Bob would say, you're gonna beat the devil out of it.
Someone in our Facebook comment said that's their favorite Bob Ross. Like,
oh, really? Beat the devil out of it?
Bob is my favorite is Happy Little Accident because that just works in life. Like good saying. Get a bad haircut, happy little accident.
Yeah.
Like,
so I'm not gonna quite beat the devil out of my brush, but I'm gonna tap it really well, get the water out. And then I have a nice rag here. It's always good to have paper towels or a rag standing by to dry your brush. That way, when you go back to another color, you're not mixing the colors. But if you do, it's okay. We just go with it. All right, so I think I'm gonna add a little more white. My blue is dried a little bit more. Yep. So see how now I'm adding a little more white to those clouds? And you're kind of making little circles, just little, maybe not full circles, sort of like little C shape. Kind of make those puffy little clouds. If you wanted streaky clouds, like just kind of like light clouds, you can do that too. You just kind of streak that into your blue. All right. So we might be ready for our big tree. We gotta have a big tree first before we have a happy little trees. So I'm going to actually get my kind of medium brush. You should have had a big brush and like a brush that's kind of about this size in your kit. This is a good one for trees, okay? So for our tree, I'm using my burr number again and adding a little black in there. Kind of get a nice dark color. And I'm gonna have my tree start over here on the right-hand side. Now, see how it's kind of streaking from the white? That's okay. We're just working with the paint. And it's gonna dry, and then we can add more layers on top of it. The key with your big old tree is you wanna make a straight line, but then kind of fan it out at the bottom. Now, I don't have my favorite fan brush with me, but any old brush will do. You're just gonna kind of make a bit of a wider base down at the bottom for your tree's roots. You want it to have nice, strong roots at the base, right? Okay. Now we've got our trunk. And our trunk's sort of like greenish gray at the moment, but that's all right. So as we paint upward, we're gonna kind of make one branch go off to the edge there. And another branch go off to the edge there. And as we make our branches, we kind of like lift our brush up a little bit. Kind of like this. You're almost like making it scoop a little bit. And that's how you get sort of like the pointy edge with sort of a wider brush here. You just kind of start to lift it up off the page. So I've got 3 branches here. So when you use your brush and you press really hard, it kind of fans out. You know, it fans out. But then when you lift it up, that's how you get kind of a little bit of a point. A little bit of a pointy edge, because branches are really delicate down at the edge there. And okay, so I'm going to add a few more branches to my tree, kind of at random. The thing with branches is you want to kind of keep lightly Put them on there kind of lightly. All right. How's everyone doing with their painting? Is everyone with me? Everyone's madly painting in firm concentration. Big thumbs up from Henry. All right. And Kate. All right. Excellent. Okay, so I think we're ready to maybe, whoa, look at those clouds. Those are some excellent happy clouds. Love it. Oh no, that wasn't it. Okay. Thank you. Love it. How you doing there, Joanne? You're muted. All right, if anyone like gets into trouble and they're getting frustrated, unmute yourself, let me know, ask me a question. Let's troubleshoot it. All right, so I think we're ready for our next Bob Ross-ism element here, and that is a river. So we're gonna add a little river here. Maybe a little, maybe not a river, maybe a stream. Maybe a stream by our tree. Macaulay's nodding. All right, so I think I'm gonna go back to my friend, my 1-inch brush, which I am drying really well. Make sure when you dry your brush, you kind of squeeze out the water here. Okay. So I'm gonna go back to my blue. We're using a lot of blue and white here. Okay. And I think I'm gonna make my stream kind of start behind, back behind, a little brook, a little happy stream. Now, if it goes off into the distance, you want it to just be a little bit, just this fine line. And then you want it to get gradually wider down here on the left-hand corner, a little bit wider. Okay. Now, if you really wanted to get fancy, you could use a palette knife for this, but we are just going to use our favorite 1-inch brush. All right, so we got our stream kind of mapped out there. What does a stream need next to it? A stream needs rocks, right? Rocks. Okay, so we're going to add, I know that is a Bob Ross essential. We're going to add some rocks. Okay. So we're going to go back to, rocks are various shades of gray. So we're going to go back to our white and our black. You can still use the same 1-inch brush you used for the stream. Am I going too fast? Should I slow down? Are folks doing okay?
We might need a minute. What were the colors on the stream? We're kind of having,
I kind of just mixed the blue and the white. It's, if your paint's still kind of wet, it's gonna look a little muddy, which is okay too. At first, you're gonna kind of like map it out and then let it dry for a bit. And while it dries, we're gonna put in our rocks kind of by the side. I like that you all are just painting side by side there. You look like you're having fun. All right, so for the rocks, I'm just gonna mix kind of like a shade of gray right on my palette there. And our rocks, I'm gonna kind of sketch in a little bit like we did with the clouds, kind of a circular motion. Not full circles, but like little, almost upside down U's. And if it's getting too dark, I just add a little more white in there. And we're using our imagination on this, so you know, this isn't necessarily like a real place. You can make it however you want. I'm gonna make a big old rock out here in the distance because that was a happy little accident there. My brush kind of got away from me, got a little crazy. So kind of making that into a big old rock, and adding a little white in there. Okay. And then adding a little more of the gray. A little more white than I needed there, so I'm going to add a little more black back in. All right. So this is getting a little muddy here with the grays, but we're going to kind of sketch. We're sketching in our rocks, and then we're going to go back in and define them a little bit later. Maybe I'll make a big old rock here in the foreground. This big old rock here. All righty. So now that my paint, my ground is starting to dry a little more, I'm going to go in and define that a little bit. Maybe we'll put some happy little trees here out in the distance. I think we need something back here in the distance, some happy little trees. So for that, I'm going to switch from my favorite 1-inch brush. Put that back in my water. Then get my smaller brush back. Okay, get that nice and dry. And first off, I'm going to define my ground a little more. So I'm taking my small brush and I'm just making a nice clean edge there. Your edge might already be cleaned up a bit. Mine got a little muddied with the sky, so I'm just kind of blending that in there. Almost looks like the sun is here, like shining down. I got some lines there where my two colors are kind of intersecting. So to blend that together, I just add a little bit more of the color that was in between them. So you just keep going back and forth to blend them. Okay. Now we're talking about some yellow earlier. I'm gonna just put a few little streaks of yellow in there just to be a little crazy. Because the sun is over here somewhere, shining down on our spring day. And I just put in a few little yellow highlights in there. Alrighty. And while I'm working on my background, I'm just gonna clean up this back here. This is kind of more in the background and in the shadows. So I'm gonna make this part back behind our tree a little darker. So I'm adding my black and my burnt umber, a little more of that in the green. I got a little carried away with the green, so I'm adding a little black and brown back in it. Because this part's under our big tree instead of our happy little trees. This is back under our big tree, so it's needs a little shadow there. All right. So I think we're finally ready to add our happy trees. Everyone with me to add some happy little trees? All right. So our happy little trees are off in the distance. They're going to be kind of like silhouetted, which means we want some black and some brown here. We're using a lot of that burnt umber. And we're going to just start from the bottom and flick up. Kind of like you did with the big tree, but with lots of little trunks here, okay? Tiny little forest we're gonna make. Tiny little forest off here in the distance. Remember, we're just making a nice little flick. Goes up. Doesn't matter how far they go up because we're gonna add some leaves in there, some nice greenery. All right. I think we need a little more shadow in here too. So I'm just gonna take my brush and go back and forth a little bit. My black, the jet black. All right. All right. Now we've kind of got the effect of like all these little trunks, branches kind of going all crazy a little bit. So we're going to take our green and mix it with the brown. For those of you at the kits, your green is a little more of a sap green, so you might not need quite as much brown in there. Depends on what you like. And this is one where I'm gonna just start dabbing. We're gonna make lots of little dabs on here. We're just kind of dotting. So remember with our trunks, we were kind of doing a light stroke. And with our, can you all see that okay, Polly? Is that showing up okay? Is it too far away? Okay. So for our leaves, we're just kind of doing like almost little blobs, just little blobs, kind of at random. With our green and our brown. And then maybe add even a little more brown in there for another layer. So you're going to have lots of different shades in there. Okay, lots of different shades. I'm going to take even just some straight up brown and dab it in there.
Heather, maybe when you have a moment, you can just do a little zoom in on what you're doing. You can tell the shape, you just can't tell your shades like you're talking.
Yeah, that's what I realized is this is kind of far away. Okay.
Not bad. Perfect. Thank you.
So I've got some green. I started with some green and brown mixed together. And then I added a little more brown on top. Kind of keep dabbing it. And then we're going to go for some green and like yellowish.
Thank you.
All right, so now I'm adding some yellow. Because remember, we've got the sun coming from over here. So our sun is shining on our leaves and they're kind of glistening in the light. So you got a little bit of brightness there with the yellow and even just a tiny bit of white. I'm not cleaning my brush in between. I'm just dipping it in the yellow, dipping it in the white, because you kind of want all those colors to mix a little bit. And then you kind of keep dabbing